This episode is an ESL listening practice for intermediate learners. You will hear a natural conversation with clear pronunciation and everyday English. No tests, no pressure, just listening. Let's start.
Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to ESL Listening Practice. It is absolutely fantastic to have you with us today.
It really is.
Whether you're tuning in on your morning commute, maybe listening at the gym, or you've carved out some quiet time at your desk, notebook ready, we are just thrilled to be a part of your English learning journey. We're here to help you bridge that really challenging gap from intermediate to advanced proficiency. We're talking to those of you aiming for a B2 level or higher, maybe for university or a career abroad.
That's right. It's always a pleasure to be here. Our mission is really to guide you through the nuances of English. We're not just here to drill grammar rules. We want to help you understand the psychology of communication.
The psychology, I like that.
Yeah, we want to help you sound more natural, more confident, and just ready to tackle whatever challenges come your way. And for our listeners, that challenge is usually one of those high-stakes international exams.
Like IELTS or TOEFL or the Cambridge suite. And speaking of high stakes, we have a topic today that is going to sound a little bit controversial.
Just a little.
It might even go against everything your parents, your school teachers, or society in general taught you growing up. The advice we're unpacking today is, well, quite simply, stop being honest in exams.
It does sound provocative, doesn't it? Stop being honest. It sounds like we're telling people to be, deceitful or untrustworthy.
Right.
But when we look really closely at what's required in speaking and writing exams, this idea of stopping honesty is actually one of the most practical, strategic pieces of advice a student can receive.
It really is. And just to be absolutely clear for everyone listening, right from the start, we are not telling you to go out and lie to your friends or your family.
Or your boss. Please don't do that.
No. We're talking specifically about the context of an English language exam. The argument we're exploring is that honesty can actually be a trap.
A trap.
Yeah, the idea that being too literal or too modest or too self-critical can lower your score even if your English is actually quite good.
Precisely. And this is advice for a very specific type of learner. The type, they've got the vocabulary list memorized, their grammar is solid.
They've done the work.
But when they get into that exam room, they get in their own way because they're trying so hard to be truthful. They're trying to give a factually correct answer, not a linguistically correct answer.
That's the key distinction, isn't it?
It's the whole game.
So let's unpack this. The core argument is that the problem isn't honesty itself, but being, as you said, too literal or too modest. So why is being literal such a problem in a language exam?
Well, think about how we communicate in real life. Someone asks you a question, you want to give them the information they asked for. You want to be accurate.
Sure.
If I ask you, did you go to the supermarket? You just say no if you didn't go. Simple.
Right.
But in an exam, if you're too literal, it often leads to silence or really short answers. And silence in a speaking exam is the enemy.
It really is. I've seen it happen with so many students. They get asked a question, they think about the literal truth, realize that they don't have a good or an interesting answer, and they just freeze.
That's the freeze.
They're searching their memory for a fact instead of searching their brain for language.
Exactly. And that freezing or that brevity, it just kills the interaction. So today, we're going to lay out a roadmap for fixing this. We're going to cover why exams aren't real life, the danger of modesty, and giving yourself permission to invent.
I love that. And ultimately treating the exam like a performance. That sounds like we're giving listeners permission to just unleash their creativity. So let's start with that first big principle, the truth trap. The idea that exams test your language, not your real life.
This is the foundation of the whole strategy. We have to look at the examiner's objective. I think students often forget what the person sitting across from them is actually looking for.
Yeah, they're not a detective.
Yeah. No, but it can feel like an interrogation, can it? Like they're trying to extract the truth from you or catch you in a lie about your background.
Absolutely. The nerves can make it feel that way.
But it's not a lie detector test. The examiner is a language evaluator. That is their only job. They're sitting there with a checklist of criteria: vocabulary, grammar, fluency, pronunciation.
They're not checking your biography.
Not at all. They don't care if what you say is factually true. They care if it is linguistically accurate.
It's such a liberating thought when you really let it sink in. They just don't care about the facts.
It's true.
But let's look at a common scenario. This is a classic one. The examiner asks a question, maybe something a bit obscure or just irrelevant to the student's actual life. And the student, trying to be honest, says something like, I don't know.
Or I've never thought about this.
Yes. Or my favorite, nothing interesting comes to mind.
The honest, I don't know. It is, and I'm not exaggerating, probably the most fatal answer you can give in a speaking test.
Okay. Why so fatal? I mean, in the real world, if I honestly don't know the answer, isn't that the right thing to say? It's often seen as a sign of maturity.
In a job interview, maybe. In a police station, definitely. If a surgeon asks if you know how to operate on a patient, please say, I don't know.
Please do.
But in a language exam, no. Because when you say, I don't know, and you stop there, you have produced zero language.
Right.
You've given the examiner absolutely nothing to grade.
That makes total sense. You can't get points for grammar if you don't use any grammar. You can't get points for vocabulary if you don't speak any words.
Exactly. You lose the chance to show off that great vocabulary you learned. You lose the chance to use a complex sentence structure. If you don't speak, they can't grade you. It leads to what we call dead air.
And dead air is where your score goes to die.
It really is. Even if your English is C2 level, if you just say, I don't know, you are scoring 0 for that particular question.
So it's about shifting your mindset. You talk about the difference between a confession and a demonstration. Can you explain that a bit more?
A confession is about, unburdening yourself of the truth. I confess I have no idea about this topic. A demonstration is about showing a skill.
Okay.
Your goal is to demonstrate that you can speak English, regardless of the topic. It's about showing how well you use the language, not how much you know about a subject.
So if I don't know the answer, what should I do? Let's take a really tough question. For example, how has the design of public buildings changed in your country over the last 50 years? Now, I'm not an architect. I honestly have no idea.
That is a tough question, right? And it's a very common type of question in, say, IELTS Part 3. If you're in confession mode, you say, I don't know, I don't follow architecture.
And the conversation is over.
Conversation over. But if you're in demonstration mode, you realize, okay, I need to produce language. So you pivot. You use the language of speculation.
Give us an example. How would you answer that if you knew nothing about architecture?
I'd say something like this. Well, frankly, I'm not an expert on architecture, but, looking around my city, I imagine that 50 years ago, buildings were probably more traditional, more concrete heavy.
Okay.
Nowadays, I see a lot more glass and steel in the city center, which suggests a shift toward modernism and maybe more open spaces.
Oh, I see exactly what you did there. You didn't actually know the facts. You didn't name a famous architect.
Yeah.
But you used phrases like, I imagine, probably, I see, and which suggests you were speculating.
Exactly. I demonstrated the language of speculation. I didn't answer the factual question perfectly, but I answered the linguistic challenge perfectly. I produced complex sentences. I used comparison vocabulary, like more traditional versus modernism. That's what the examiner is listening for.
That is a huge shift. You're answering the need for language, not the need for facts.
Yeah.
This sort of leads us to another form of honesty that's a trap, which is honesty about our own feelings of inadequacy.
Yes.
The modesty mistake.
Don't undersell yourself. This is a big one, especially for students from cultures where modesty is a really important virtue.
Right. I hear this all the time. A student sits down, maybe they're shaking a little because they're nervous, and the first thing out of their mouth is, sorry, my English is not very good.
Or, I'm really bad at this topic.
That one too.
It's a defense mechanism, We do it to lower expectations. We think, if I tell them I'm bad, they won't judge me as harshly when I make a mistake. We're trying to protect ourselves from criticism.
But that approach is actually a huge strategic error. Why is that?
Because it biases the examiner against you immediately. There's a psychological concept called priming. If you tell me my English is bad, I am now unconsciously listening for errors to confirm your statement.
You've told me what to look for?
Yes. You've highlighted your flaws before you've even started speaking. You're basically telling the examiner, please notice my mistakes.
That is so true. You're shining a spotlight on your weaknesses. And instead of looking for your strengths, they're now just waiting for you to fail.
You are. And honestly, it's a bit annoying for an examiner. They want to hear what you can do, not an apology for what you can't. The instruction here is very clear. You should sound capable, even if you are internally a nervous wreck.
So is this a case of fake it till you make it?
In a way, yes. It's about projecting capability. Now, this isn't about lying about your level you can't fake C1 grammar if you only have B1 grammar.
You can't fake what you don't have.
No, if you don't know the past perfect, you can't just invent it. But you can fake the confidence. You can refuse to apologize.
So instead of saying, sorry, I'm nervous that my English is bad, what should a student do?
Just take a deep breath, smile, and start talking. Treat that exam room as a specific zone where modesty just doesn't exist. You're there to sell your skills.
You wouldn't walk into a job interview and say, hi, I'm probably not good enough for this job, but you should hire me anyway.
No, you definitely wouldn't. You'd sell yourself. So don't do it in an English exam. Drop the apologies. Focus on the task.
What if you struggle for a word?
Even then, don't say, oh, my English is terrible. You say, hang on, let me find the right word for this. And then you keep moving. It shows resilience, which is actually a part of fluency.
That's great advice. Let me find the right word. Sounds so much more professional than, sorry, I'm bad. It sounds like you're in control of the language, not the other way around.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered not being modest and not being silent. Now we get to the part that I think is the most fun, but also maybe the most scary for some people.
The power of invention.
Yes. The concept that it is okay to invent.
This is where we really start to break the rules.
We're basically giving listeners permission to just create. I remember when I first realized this was allowed, I felt this massive sense of relief. I mean, I could just make things up.
You absolutely can. And in many cases, you really should.
But isn't that lying?
Well, technically, yes. But let's go back to our first principle. The examiner is not a lie detector.
They're a language evaluator.
They're testing your ability to describe, to narrate, to explain. They are not verifying if you actually build model airplanes in your basement or if you really went to the moon last summer.
That's a great image. Okay, so let's walk through a concrete scenario. This happens all the time in IELTS Part 1 or Part 2. The topic is hobbies. Tell me about a hobby you enjoy.
Right. And let's say the student works 2 jobs, has 3 kids, and genuinely has 0 free time. Their honest answer is, I don't have any hobbies. I just sleep.
Which is honest and a little sad, but honest.
It's honest, but it is a conversation killer. It stops the flow. And most importantly, it limits the vocabulary you can use. You can't show off vocabulary about equipment or process or passion if you just say, I sleep.
You're denying yourself the opportunity to score points.
Completely. So the strategic answer, the good answer, is to choose a hobby and just talk about it as if it were yours.
Okay.
Pick something you know the vocabulary for. Maybe you read an article about photography once, or you know a lot of cooking words. For the next 10 minutes, you are a world-class photographer or a gourmet chef.
Okay, let's try a role play of this. It'll really show the listeners how it sounds.
Yeah.
So I'm the examiner. So tell me about a hobby you enjoy. And let's pretend you, the expert, actually don't have one.
Okay. If I'm being strategic, I might say something like, well, lately I've really gotten into hiking. I find it's very therapeutic to get out of the city and into nature. I love the challenge of building up my stamina to reach the summit, and the panoramic views from the top are they're breathtaking. It's a great way to disconnect.
Wow. Okay. Do you actually hike?
I hate hiking. I would much rather sit on the couch. But did you notice the language?
I did. Therapeutic, stamina, summit, panoramic views, breathtaking, disconnect.
I showed range. I showed collocation. If I had been honest and just said, I watch TV, I couldn't have used any of that language.
That's the key right there. You're using imagination to demonstrate your language skills. It's a tool. It's not about deception for the sake of deception.
Yeah.
It's about accessing a semantic field, a whole group of words that you know, but you wouldn't otherwise get to use.
That's it. And it's so important to emphasize that this is allowed. It is not cheating. Cheating is looking at a dictionary or writing notes on your hand. Inventing a story to showcase your English is exactly what you were supposed to do.
It shows you're flexible with the language.
It does, and this helps with the I don't know problem too. If they ask about a travel experience and you've never left your hometown, just invent a trip.
Invent a trip to Paris.
Exactly. Describe the Eiffel Tower. You've seen pictures. You know the words tall, iron, crowded, beautiful, landmarks. Use them. The examiner's not going to ask to see your passport stamps.
I love that. The examiner won't ask to see your passport stamps. That is such a crucial reminder. You're free to roam the world in your mind.
You really are.
Okay, moving on to the next strategy. This one is more about the structure of your answers. We're talking about the yes-no killer.
This connects right back to the idea of being too literal. The advice is to avoid short, honest answers.
We touched on this briefly, but let's go deeper. Short answers like yes or no or maybe. They're technically honest. If you ask me, do you like the color blue? And I say yes, I have told the truth.
They are honest, but they are weak. In the grading criteria for these exams, there's always a section on fluency and coherence. A one-word answer shows zero fluency.
It provides no data for the examiner.
None. And it forces the examiner to do all the work, to pull the language out of you.
It's like trying to judge a singer who only sings one note. You can't tell if they're a good singer or not.
That's a perfect analogy. You can't judge their range if they just go la. You need the whole melody.
So the rule is, always extend your answer.
Always. Never let a yes or a no stand alone.
Okay, let's do another role play for this one. The question is, do you like spicy food?
A very common, simple question.
The bad answer is just no.
And again, you get silence. The examiner now has to think of another question to pull language out of you. And by the way, this is exhausting for the examiner. You do not want to exhaust the person who is giving you your score.
That's a very good point. So how do we extend this? If the answer is truly no, how do we make it a better answer?
You have to explain why or offer an alternative. There's a structure I like to call ARE. Answer, reason, extension. Give the answer, give the reason why, and then extend with an example or a contrasting detail.
Okay, show us how it's done. Do you like spicy food?
No, actually, I prefer mild flavors because spicy food tends to upset my stomach. I really enjoy tasting the natural ingredients of the dish rather than just the heat, so I usually stick to savory cuisines like Italian.
Boom. Look at all that language. Upset my stomach. Natural ingredients rather than savory cuisines. You took a simple no and you turned it into a complex paragraph with a contrast structure.
And it wasn't even that hard to do. It just required the mindset of, I must not stop talking yet.
That is the golden rule. The answer isn't finished until you've added a because or a but or an although. You have to extend.
Yeah, half.
And what if the answer is yes?
Same thing. Apply the ARE method. So, do you like spicy food? Yes, absolutely. I love the kick it gives to a meal. In fact, I put hot sauce on almost everything I eat because I find bland food quite boring.
See, you added an example. Hot sauce. And feeling the kick, boring.
And you've given the examiner so much more to grade.
It also makes the conversation feel so much more natural. In real life, if I asked you if you like spicy food and you just stared at me and said, no, I think you were angry at me or something.
Exactly. It's kind of antisocial behavior. And exams are, at their heart, a simulation of a social interaction. Being monosyllabic is bad social skills, and therefore it's bad language skills.
This brings us to the final, and I think the most overarching part of our discussion today, the idea of the exam as a performance.
This really summarizes everything we've talked about. The mindset shift is, think strategy, not truth.
I love the idea of comparing an exam to a stage performance. You're an actor, and you're playing the role of a fluent English speaker.
That is a very helpful psychological trick. When you walk into that room, you're not student X who is nervous and worried about their visa. You are the fluent speaker. You're playing a character.
And what are the traits of this character? We sort of identified 4 pillars of this performance. Let's go through them.
Sure. So the 4 pillars are clear structure, varied vocabulary, correct grammar, and natural phrases.
And notice what's missing from that list.
Truth.
Truth is not on the list.
It isn't. Truth is irrelevant. The performance is all about form, not content.
Okay, so let's break these down just a bit. Clear structure. This means using those connecting words we talked about.
Yes. Firstly. Secondly, on the other hand, however, it means your answer has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's not just a random stream of consciousness. It shows you can organize your thoughts in English.
Okay. And varied vocabulary. This means not saying good and bad all the time.
Right. We call those dead words. Instead of good, you can use excellent, superb, beneficial. Instead of bad, maybe detrimental, unpleasant, or challenging. The character you're playing has a thesaurus in their brain.
Got it. Correct grammar. That's obvious, but important.
It is, but remember, correct doesn't mean perfect. It means you're attempting complex structures. It is so much better to try a conditional sentence like, if I had known, I would have gone, and make a tiny mistake, than to only use simple sentences like, I went to the store perfectly.
That's a nuance a lot of students miss. They play it so safe to avoid errors, but that actually lowers their score because they're not showing any range.
Exactly. Risk-taking is part of the performance. The examiner rewards the attempt at complexity.
And the last pillar, natural phrases.
This is about things like idiomatic expressions or collocations, saying, I'm keen on football, instead of just, I like football, or saying something costs an arm and a leg instead of just it's expensive.
Right.
These little touches convince the examiner that your character, the fluent speaker, is authentic.
So we're really redefining what honesty means in this specific context. There's a definition of exam honesty that I think we should highlight.
Yes. Honesty in exams means honestly showing your best English, not your real-life limitations.
That is profound, actually.
It really is. Think about it. If you're tired or bored or uninspired in real life, that's your reality. But if you bring that into the exam, you're hiding your true English ability behind your mood.
Right. You're letting your mood censor your language.
Exactly. So by acting energetic, by inventing interesting stories, you're actually being more honest about your language level. You're clearing away the fog of your personality so the examiner can see the clear picture of your grammar and your vocabulary.
That is such a cool way to look at it. If I'm a C1 student, but I give a short, boring answer because I'm tired, I'm falsely presenting myself as an A2 student.
You are lying about your ability by being truthful about your mood.
Whoa, that is mind-blowing. You are lying about your ability by being truthful about your mood. That sums it up perfectly.
The certificate you get at the end, that piece of paper, it reflects your language ability. It does not reflect your personal reality.
It doesn't certify that you love spicy food or that you're an expert on architecture.
No, it certifies that you can speak English. So give them the English.
And I think this helps take the pressure off, too. You don't have to be an interesting person. You just have to be an interesting speaker.
Yes. You can be the most boring person in the world, but if you can describe your boredom using the past perfect continuous tense, you are going to get a high score.
I had been sitting there being boring for 3 hours when...
10 points.
This has been such an enlightening discussion. I feel like we've just given our listeners a secret weapon.
It's a mindset shift, and mindset is half the battle in these exams.
So let's wrap this up with a summary of the key takeaways. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have. Let's recap the main points. Number 1, don't be literal. Be talkative. Silence is your enemy.
Number 2, don't apologize for your English. Don't undersell yourself. Never say my English is bad.
Number 3, invent examples if you need to. Lying for the sake of language is totally permitted.
Right. Number 4, never ever give one-word answers. Avoid that yes-no trap. Always extend with it because, a reason, or an example.
And finally, number 5, treat it like a performance. You are an actor, and your script is your best vocabulary and grammar.
It sounds so actionable when you list it out like that.
It really is. These are things you can start practicing immediately.
And that brings us to our final provocative thought for the day. We want to leave you with this idea. Don't stop being an honest person, but absolutely stop being overly honest in your exams.
It's a clear distinction. Ethics apply to life. Strategy applies to exams.
So I want to challenge our listeners. In your next practice session, whether you're talking to a tutor, a language partner, or just to yourself in the mirror, I want you to practice lying.
That sounds dangerous.
I mean it. Practice lying in English. Pick a topic you know nothing about or a hobby you don't have, and try to speak about it for 2 minutes convincingly. See how it feels to free yourself from the burden of the truth.
You might find that when you stop worrying about the facts, your brain suddenly has all this extra energy to focus on the English.
Exactly.
You might find words popping up that you'd forgotten you even knew.
Give yourself permission to be a storyteller. Because at the end of the day, an exam is just a story you are telling an examiner about how good your English is. So make it a good story.
Well said.
Thank you so much for joining us on ESL Listening Practice today. We really hope this helps you walk into your next exam with a little more swagger and a lot more strategy.
Good luck with your studies, everyone. Be confident, be creative, and most of all, keep talking.
We'll see you next time.